What's good, YouTube? Mina Steel here, and today's video is going to be a little different, not only because we skipped the intro, mainly because we're taking on two different expert solo battles in this video, but because this video is exclusively to tackle the no trainer expert solo battle mission that two different missions have. And since the deck that I found to be most consistent to beat either one is this one right here, I felt bad dividing it into two different videos to give the exact same material. So I decided to put it all in one, despite it resulting in a little longer video. And before I start breaking down this list specifically, I wanted to point out four different things. One being that when it means no trainer cards, it means literally anything that's not a Pokemon, even fossils, supporters, Pokeballs, Pokemon communication, all those cards that aren't Pokemon are considered trainers, as you can see from the top right of the card. Number two, this list is only using dark type energy. Number three is that there will be video chapters down below separating not only the deck breakdown, but alternatives that you could use, as well as tiny insights to the different decks that we're facing, and ultimately the example gameplay that shows you how this deck works way better than I could put into words. Feel free to click around, as my intention is just to help you out beat this challenge, regardless of which part of the video is the one that helps you. Last but not least, I've yet to make a video of how to beat Glaceon with only fire types, and the Arceus Weavile with only psychics, and those will be coming out shortly. I just knew I had to get this video out there once I found a way to beat the challenge. And with that, let's get right into the deck list, as I truly believe this is the best way to beat the challenge. When looking at this deck at face value, you can see that it's made up of cards that have had their fair share of meta relevance. And the main concept is grabbing the lack of consistency that comes from the lack of Professor's Research Pokeball, Poke Communication, and such, and replacing it with cards that do more of the same, thus in some roundabout way causing some form of consistency, as you're more likely to see the strategy come together if every card adds to that strategy. The strategy comes down to like a simple 3-card formula, which is a lead, a finisher, and some chip damage. Clearly, the deck is made with some ideal options in mind. For your lead, you would prefer Kangaskhan or Druddigon. For your finisher, you want Darkrai or Arceus. And for chip damage, you would love to have a Greninja or a Crobat built up. But the best part about this list and why I believe it's so effective is that there will be games where you don't start Druddigon or Kangaskhan, and you don't mind starting Froakie and Zubat, as not only do they tank on their own a hit from either solo battle, but they have the potential to evolve into Froakie and Golbat respectively, that not only survive yet another hit, but are able to deal even more damage. The same can be said for finishers, as although Darkrai and Arceus are definitely the heavy hitters, every now and then you'll have the potential to close out games with either Crobat and Kangaskhan, as not only do they take on hits, they're able to deal a significant amount of damage, especially Crobat that can deal up to 80 with its own ability plus the attack. And when it comes to chip damage, the dream is clearly to hit with Crobat and or Greninja. But that goes without saying that Druddigon and Darkrai are constantly applying chip damage as well. So there's many games where I have not been able to build up to that Crobat or Greninja, and I'm still able to apply enough pressure thanks to Druddigon's Rough Skin and Darkrai's Nightmare Aura. Overall, despite abandoning everything we know about consistency due to the parameters of the challenge, this deck happens to be really good at what it has to do, and it's strong enough to beat not only the Glaceon, but the Arceus Weavile. And although I'm adamant about this being the best way to beat the challenge, I did take the time to separate and make a list of cards that you could replace certain things in here, whether it's because you don't have the cards or maybe preference. And ultimately, I just believe giving you more options was just ideal. So when it comes to alternatives, although I want to stress that it's kind of like a step down from the list that we already have. So when it comes to alternatives, the main things that you could change are either your leads or your finisher. And you could easily cut chip damage for more leads or more finishers, however you see fit, or again, like I said, due to availability. A lead that I truly believe fits perfectly with our list is the non-EX Arceus, as you're able to add more names to consistently have Crobat live. I was actually tinkering with the idea of cutting Druddigon for this Arceus, but full transparency, I do not have 2 copies of this Arceus, so I decided to go just on pure consistency, or the main idea that I had. The other 3 cards on this list also count as leads, as they focus on ramping, whether it's Manaphy that can ramp cards like Palkia, Mew, or Arceus, Dialga that could also ramp Mew and Arceus, or Leafeon that could ramp itself and Celebi. As you can see, the main idea of these cards is to ramp. The reason that I'm kind of iffy on Dialga is that not only is it slower, but it's an EX, and I kind of don't like the idea of starting with an EX, as if they were to take it down, you're already down 2 points. And the best way to go through this challenge is giving them 2 1-pointers before you finish with your EX. But nonetheless, it's an option, and it starts leaning towards one of the better decks in the format, if not the best deck in the current format. When it comes to Manaphy and Dialga, you clearly shift away from the Darkrai strategy, as Darkrai requires dark energy. So if you opt to play Manaphy, you would cut Darkrai, and you fit Manaphy and Palkia as your finisher. If you play Dialga, you would also still cut Darkrai, but you would try to fit in Mew, so you have a finisher alongside Arceus. Especially against Palkia, the Mew being able to copy Dimensional Storm is huge in that matchup, to the point where most of my early builds for this challenge had Mew as a staple. Leafeon's the only one that you could add to any list without changing the game plan at all, as the Force Breath provides the grass energy for not only itself, but Celebi. So those go hand in hand for the most part, as like you don't want Leafeon just to be able to charge itself, although it is technically generic and can do that. But in my personal opinion, it's the weaker of all the alternatives, as I don't want to depend on a Celebi coin flip after having so many things go right in the situation. And then the last card I haven't touched upon is Magnezone, which is a clear card that's been a generic staple card that you could throw into any deck regardless of the energy, Darkrai Magnezone's been a good deck. Although it's fallen off with the new set, it's still strong in this scenario. It just personally overlapped with my finishers, and I kind of wanted more chip damage, so that's why my stage 2s in the list that I went with are both Greninja and Crobat. You can easily cut either line to fit in Magnezone if that's what you prefer, or that's what you have available. With that said, I'll repeat that the main list that I put is what I personally believe is the best, but whether it's preference or availability, these are also very solid options. And now we could look into the decks that we're going against. The first deck to introduce the No Trainer Challenge was in fact the Glaceon EX deck from Triumphant Light. And out of the 2 decks that we have to beat with this parameter, Glaceon's definitely the toughest. However, they're both very beatable. When it comes to what they're trying to do, honestly, if they start building up Glaceon, it's a lot more threatening than their Palkia, as their Palkia, although it's their go-to lead, can only deal 30 damage until it finally has 4 energy. And that's the main reason why we're playing Kangaskhan and Jotagon, as they're able to take 4 hits from Palkia, whether it's 30, 30, 30 into Dimensional Storm. And most of the time, if our deck does well, we're able to follow up with the 2 or 3 turns that our lead buys us with lethal damage from either a backup Darkrai or Arceus. Things to know from this deck is that they're very active with their Sabrina, so in the early game, when you have your lead, you don't want to put down Pokemon unless you're finally going to start charging up Darkrai, or you have like a perfect like Zubat or Froakie line where you're going to go into your Greninja or Crobat. But when it comes to Cyrus, they don't really use it, so that's something that you don't have to like worry about too much, although it doesn't really come up where you'll switch. Most of the time when you have something that's harmed in the backline, it's because they use their Sabrina. Another thing to know is that they have Cape and they will heal with Irida quite actively. Where this deck does falter is the fact that they're pretty reckless with how they distribute their energy. Yeah, if they start Manaphy and they're able to charge the backline, they'll have a hard time messing it up. But when it comes to like Elite Palkia, they'll start with 1 energy on Palkia, then they'll start throwing energy to the Palkia in the back or an Eevee. It gets really awkward, and honestly, it's for our benefit. And the last point that I want to make about this deck is that they don't have Misty, so at no point are they going to have like energy out of nowhere that you can't expect and just steal a game from you. When it comes to the Arceus Weavile deck, it comes a lot easier, as this deck, as you could note, does not have Sabrina or Cyrus, has no healing in the form of potion, or clearly they're not water, so they don't have a Irida, and they're not even using Cape, so their numbers are really low. Between the damage provided by Kangaskhan or Jotagon as a lead, and the chip damage of building up a Darkrai, or having some combination of Greninja and Crobat, it's usually too much for this deck to deal with. Especially since before building up an Arceus, the most they could do is 70 damage. Thus, as you'll see in practice, this deck ends up being quite a breeze if you draw it properly. Now that we're done with all the talking, I urge you to stick around for the gameplay, as it's the best way for me to show you visually exactly what this deck is supposed to do and how I react to certain situations in the game. Regardless, if you got to this point of the video, I thank you. And feel free to comment down below any questions or suggestions you have about the list or about the challenge in general. And if you found this video helpful or just enjoy all things Pokemon Pocket, please consider liking and subscribing for more. And above all else, stay pro. Alright, going first again, but this time we have Kangaskhan, which is like hit or miss on which one's better between Jotagon and Kangaskhan. Let's try Kangaskhan just because, I don't know, I feel like I'm saying it weird though. Let's just start with that one this time, just to see like what a different start looks like, rather than just starting Jotagon all over again. Although ideally you might make it like, oh, if I go first I do this, if I go second I do the other. Because here clearly they're gonna hit us and there's no like, they don't get punished for swinging at the Kanga, but at the same time, if we go to our turn and hit it for 60, then it's obviously better than the Jotagon. So for the most part, starting either or is perfectly fine. That's like the idea. Yeah, this is a good example. Like without the Glaceon, honestly, it gets so much easier. We have Zubat, we have Arceus. We have a lot of the pieces coming together, but there's no, they don't play Misty or nothing, so it's not like they're gonna surprise us. We could keep it like this for now. Again, we're trying to avoid Sabrina putting us in a spot we don't want to be in. And honestly, actually, this is perfect. I'm actually glad that it's being like as poor as possible to show you how even ugly as this, we can still get the win at the end. Because once everything else starts coming together, it's... The best part about this is how long it takes to go down. Alright, so now we can start building up Darkrai. And realistically, I'll commit to Zubat. And I'll regret not doing it earlier, since we do have the Golbat. All we need is just one more piece in the Crobat, so... That's something I could have done a turn earlier, but that's nor here nor there. Finally, Kangaskhan starts doing a little something. So you see, like, even though we had pretty bad luck with the Kangaskhan, we've dealt 30 damage that in the same position Jotagon would have dealt, Okay, so hold up, let's see... you know what? Let's send out Darkrai. Reason being that we could back out Darkrai, no issue. Or we could even keep Darkrai up front. Like, it's really that easy. But, let's evolve, go back here. Yeah, all things considered. Now, let's stick to the game plan. Like, that could, like, in the long run, that might be a mistake, especially if... Okay, I was about to say, like... Alright, so this goes back to... If it was Drotagon instead, we'd be even at... Actually, Drotagon would have been stuck at 40 because of the Sabrina play. You see, this is why I did the Darkrai switch. Alright, really hoping for that Crobat, though. Not gonna lie. Alright, Kangaskhan going on with a bang. Nah, I thought I was gonna get the 60, but we'll take 30 here. Here's the point where, although it's not ideal, we go out with we give him the 1 damage Pokemon to make sure like we go in a perfect order. We might have to pivot completely here. This has not been going according to plan, if I'll be honest with you. But let's go Palkia, I guess. Yeah, the correct play, I guess, would have been leaving Darkrai up front and eventually would have gone in the knockout, but... Dimensional Storm in this position is crazy. Like, I'm not complaining, because we definitely benefit from them doing so, but... And I think we're forced to do this as much as I don't want to. I kind of wish we had a better way of dealing damage. But we do outpace anything that they do, I believe. Regardless of which way they go. I guess Glaceon would have actually been an interesting choice for them to do. But yeah, let's keep it there. They're gonna deal 30. We hit them for 100. Then they're gonna deal another 30. Okay, yeah, we're fine, we're fine. Especially if they started applying going for the Glaceon here. And we finally see the pieces of this that we wanted. Even with Arita, or whatever, Arita. Almost forgot to do this. Alright. The most they could heal up to is 90, and we do a total of 120 next turn because of Greninja. They'll probably start playing around where they switch the Palkia out the way or something. Yeah, it's pretty predictable to a certain extent. I just wish I was playing a little cleaner because honestly, I feel like I'm not giving the deck, like I'm not doing the deck justice, but it's still working, right? So I guess that proves the point of like you could butcher it and it still works. All right, and finally we get an example of going second, so let's make the most of it. And wow, okay, we're an Arceus away from honestly this being the peak of what this deck could do. We have the perfect Crobat line already. We have Darkrai to start burning early. Kangaskhan's going to be swinging off rip. Yeah, so we're an Arceus away, which is another reason I probably mentioned it in the opener. I kind of wanted to fit I wanted to fit a copy of like regular Arceus, maybe over the Drotagon, because I do prefer Kangaskhan over Drotagon. Is it going to make me look good for saying so? What? Okay, so it didn't necessarily work out, but yeah, I prefer Kangaskhan over Drotagon, so we cut the 2 Drotagons for 2 Arceuses just to make this more consistent, but at the same time, first of all, I don't have a second copy of the baby Arceus to like even prove or try out if it works, but... Alright, so Okay, the game plan was clear until now. Unfortunately, Kangaskhan's gonna fall to Weavile, but that's fine. Let's go Golbat. You know what? A second Kangaskhan is not the worst to set up. Like this is a slot for Arceus, but this Kangaskhan's gonna fall before that, so. Yeah, funny enough, had I just passed, I probably would have prolonged the life of this Golbat. I mean, of our Kangaskhan. But then if it evolves into Crobat, it gets a little ugly of a situation. So might as well take it down while we can. And honestly, the best thing about this deck is that yeah, Darkrai and Arceus are 2-pointers, but most of the time you're able to throw a bunch of like bodies at the Pokemon they have, and not risk much. Yeah, so hopefully we see Arceus. Otherwise, it's a pretty simple game plan regardless. It's not like they have Geo or nothing, so this Kangaskhan will be able to swing and take a hit. Alright, can't write it any better. This is gonna be a great example to end the video on because it's like the dream. Let's go Cunning Link. And it's almost like I wanna let's preserve the HP on Kangaskhan, because this way they only hit us for 30 and we're able to evenly trade in a way where they're forced to give us the Darkrai on our turn. Like, we don't want to make it where alright, any other way, like let's say had we swung last turn, our Kangaskhan would have been, hold up, first of all we would have to use an energy on the Kangaskhan. So we would have been knocked out and not ready to swing with Darkrai yet, is what I'm trying to get at. And yeah, okay, so that's all she wrote. Not even, we don't even need to swing with anything. We just put, and yeah, basically once you get this set up, I know it's not super consistent. We're not playing any Pokeballs, no communications, no nothing, but when half your deck is like Darkrai and Arceus and the other half is trying to burn, like we have enough engine like of each thing. Like so if it was in diagrams, like we want to lead, we want a thing that burns from the bench, and we want an EX finisher. And Darkrai kind of overlaps on the burn from the bench, and then any of these overlap with the lead because they just count as 1 point. And once you start really looking at it, the deck, although it is just 20 cards that one by one don't do much, once they come together, it's just too strong. And hopefully you guys have the cards to put it together because it's worked perfectly. Since I put it together, I have not dropped a no trainer battle against any of the expert battles. So if this video helps you or you enjoy everything Pokemon Pocket, please consider liking and subscribing. And above all else, stay pro.